The 4D model is also the heart and soul of what we've been talking about in the Flow Certified Professional Training. You've already heard it and seen it demonstrated multiple times throughout this deck in many different instances already. The leadership takeaways for this video for the 4D model includes the 4D model itself, how to use the 4D model in reverse just like we did with the 4R model. We're going to show how the 4D model also mirrors classic Greek rhetoric, and then we're going to look a little bit on how about accountability and commitment and how to break the inform act cycle in which so many executives are trapped. We need to help them get out of that trap where they inform their teams of what they would like to happen and they miss a whole bunch of steps in between and they expect action. Okay. And so we're going to look at that one. And there are a couple things with flow that really plug the gaps in almost any methodology that you're using at the individual team or product level and even organizational level. And the first one is vision. That's why almost half of this entire training is about vision and how to use vision. And then when people look at the 4D model, they go, well, that's intuitively obvious. You have your definitions, and then you distill agreement, and then you go deliver what you've agreed to. The problem is that almost without exception, no one in either the traditional or agile communities explicitly call out how important it is to have a clear vision that's short, easy, memorable, and easy to communicate, and where you've distilled agreement. If you don't have agreement, you can't even get to commitment. And the agreement part is what's missing in almost every one of these methodologies, as well as a focus on vision and linking everything that you're doing to that vision. These are two key things that makes flow very different than agile methodologies or traditional methodologies, which are management level. Flow is the leadership framework that you need to use in order to be successful. We've already gone through the 4D model quite a number of times, but as part of the training and part of the core, you need to be able to take and apply the 4D model to what you're doing every day. Same for the 4R model, same for any of the frameworks that we're using here. You should be able to start to live and breathe these models. So when you're working with the team and you're sensing that, we're trying to deliver, but I'm not sure that we've distilled an agreement on our definitions. Well, that would be an example of, you would get that feeling through your retrospectives. The team may come to it themselves, exactly like in the example that I shared earlier, where we did a workshop. We did the training for the agile training for the team for 2 days, Wednesday, Thursday. Friday, we did a workshop and we built the backlog. And we also, part of that workshop, we also, on Thursday going into Friday, part of the workshop was building the vision for the team and linking it to the next level up, and building the mission for the team and linking it to the next level up. And then we started building the product backlog based on the team's understanding of what they thought should go into that backlog. It was really interesting. So for the first couple of sprints, two of the teams where we did that pattern, where we did the 2 days training, we did the 1 day workshop to build the backlog and get the definitions in there. On the following Monday, we had the first sprint planning where we're distilling the agreement on which of those definitions are we going to deliver. And will it help us get one step closer to our vision? We had worked with the product owner to do a loose prioritization of the product backlogs, and we're good to go. Team's ready to work. We have a Scrum Master in place, product owner in place, and a team of developers. And so we went ahead and we delivered that first sprint. And we did a retrospective, and that's part of driving and linking it back to the vision. And the team's like, well, that didn't really quite achieve the goals of what we were trying to achieve for the sprint, because one of the definitions that we did for each sprint was the goal for the sprint. And we distilled agreement among the team of, yes, these are the 3 or 4 goals and objectives that we're going to do for this sprint. After 2 sprints, as the team is saying that, we only moved maybe 70% of all of our product backlog items, the post-it notes, they only maybe 70% made it into the done column. And as they were looking at that, and then as they started looking at what had been done versus the goals, we started measuring the goals. And we said, okay, how much of each of these goals did we achieve? And we were barely achieving half of the goals. And they said, well, wait a second. By the 3rd sprint, there's a type of distillation that took place where the team changed the focus from their original definitions to, for the next 2 weeks, here are our goals, the 3, 4, 5 things we want to achieve. What are the actual things we have to do in order to get that done, in order to achieve these goals? And so the team had this moment of, I would say, distillation, where true distillation began, where they really got it and they went, oh, if we're doing this as our goal and these are the product backlog items, these product backlog items better support us achieving that goal. And suddenly, everything came off the board, went into the product backlogs, and they started writing new product backlog items on the spot in a mini workshop. And all of a sudden, they started getting closer to clearing the board. They still didn't achieve clearing the board every sprint, but that was due to working in a matrix organization where people were not fully dedicated to the team, where they were basically being pulled 4 or 5 different directions by competing projects. But we had them for half a day, every day, 5 days a week, for the most part. Not everybody, but almost everybody. And so that allowed the team to create some traction and start to get things done. And by doing it that way, the team was able to apply the 4D model. And they did it intuitively. They had learned it in class, but they did it intuitively, so that by the 3rd sprint, they were like going, oh, okay, we get this. We need to make sure what we're delivering and driving via the retrospectives and reviews, that it still matches up to the vision, and that those goals and objectives are getting us one step closer to the vision of creating product XYZ. Okay? Because this was both hardware, software, and extremely advanced software that was going into this with incredibly powerful algorithms. So basically, that was an example of the 4D model in real life, in action, being used by the team intuitively to help them get to the next level of performance and sustainable high performance. Just like with the 4R model, you can use the 4D model in reverse when you're doing your retrospective and your review. If what you delivered didn't match what the product owner and the stakeholders were looking for, then you're going to have to go back and look at the delivery and look at your distilled agreement. What did we agree to in the sprint backlog during the sprint planning? And then ultimately go back to and look at what were our definitions. Now, when we think one level up, like program level, and you've driven through multiple iterations, you notice on this slide, I included a little extra explosion there because without fail, I haven't seen a traditional classic waterfall or lean agile scrum team effort that hasn't experienced the following. And that's somewhere along the way. And in one of these projects, we were, chugging along. And it probably took 3-4 months before one of the stakeholders said, well, hey, wait a minute. If we continue doing this, we'll only get this level of savings, and it's not enough to even pay for the investments that we're going to be doing. You're going to hit a point. Not sure where that's at. Depends on the length and complexity of the project. But without exception, between deliver and drive, there's this little explosion where somebody says, oh, by the way, without fail. I've never seen a traditional Gantt chart from the beginning of a project ever match the Gantt chart at the end. And that's the same for the program plans and for the product roadmaps and the program roadmaps, same thing. Along the way, these little explosions will happen. And when that happens, the minute you hear somebody saying, oh, by the way, we have this one small change. By definition, you have a new project or work effort underway. Because when that happens, that means that we missed an agreement on what we were distilling to deliver. So that means by definition, we have a new definition. Because, oh, by the way, is a new definition. I had an executive come to me and say, Andrew, I need to do this one small change. And I said, okay, great. Let me take that back to the team. Let's look at the plan, and let me show you what this one small change is going to cost you. Can you give me a day or two to put together the numbers? And the CEO went, yeah, sure, that sounds great. Come back to me with how much the change is going to cost me. 2 days later, I see him and I say, well, we ran the numbers. Here's what you have to give up. And here's what this additional small little change will cost you. It's 1.2 million euros. Would you like me to make the adjustment to the plan? The CEO's eyes, he just got huge. I remember the look on his face to this day, because this is almost 20 years ago. And he goes, well, no, that we actually don't need that change. And I said, oh, okay. Well, so you want us to continue with the plan, with what we're going to implement, how it's going to be implemented. He goes, well, yeah, because if I have to give up these other things, this small change, it's not a higher priority than what we're already doing. I wanted that small change in addition to what you're already doing. And I looked at him and I said, and with what small army were we going to do that with? And with a smile. And he started chuckling. He goes, okay, you got me on that one. And so whenever I hear an, oh, by the way, we've got this one small change, almost without exception, there's no such thing as a small change. And we need to be able to help the executives understand the economic trade-off, the economic cost for, okay, if you want that small change, it's going to cost you either in less features over here and or this additional amount of investment that you're going to have to make. 9 times out of 10, the executive's going to look at that and they're going to go, well, you know what? That's not as high as priority as we thought. Table that, go forward with what you're doing. Let's not derail the team with the momentum that they already have. So the CEO was wise enough to do that. And so that's an example of, again, using the 4D model in reverse to help them understand that if you're creating new definitions, then Your little explosion up there on the left-hand side between deliver and drive, yeah, it's an explosion, but that doesn't mean that it should necessarily be done or invested in. Again, as with the 4R model, logos, ethos, pathos, rhema are very similar ideas. It's the talk and the walk. And logos are your definitions, your words. Ethos are your ethics that you're distilling. Hopefully, your team is able to deliver and to deliver it with passion. And as you're doing that and driving the results, it comes to life. And that's how you speak life into a team. That's how you breathe life into the team. And the rhema, the word in action, should be a manifestation of the vision that you're trying to achieve. It's almost like trying to give birth to a baby or something like that, okay? And so the vision of what you want the team to deliver in the future, what you want them to be, the rhema should be the living manifestation of your vision. And that isn't something that's always intuitively obvious to team leaders, team members, team facilitators, product owners, scrum masters, agile coaches, enterprise agile coaches. And if you want to be able to handle politics and handle changes and help people transform, you cannot transform an organization unless you start transforming the way that they speak and communicate to each other. And until they start using the words, until they start speaking to each other in new ways, until they start speaking life into the teams and breathing life into the teams, you're just going to have business as usual. You can put the lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. You can try to do agile or to do flow, but the reality is you're only going to be going through the motions. It's not going to have any fundamental change. It's not going to transform how the person thinks. It's not going to give them the right mindset, and it's definitely not going to help them to be agile or to achieve a state of sustainable flow. Okay, so just like with the 4R model, with the 4D model, at the team level, you still have the idea of definitions, ethics, passion, and making it all come to life so that those definitions come to life and fulfill the vision that you're trying to achieve. A very elegant way that one of our agile coaches was able to describe how to use the 4D model, but a slightly different way. In many organizations, the executives, they'll just inform the team members and their direct reports. They'll inform them and expect action. And you really need to break this inform act, I'll call it an anti-pattern for lack of a better word. It's really something that works against you. And I don't know why the executives do that. They inform, they issue their edicts, and they expect action. Now, that's great. But there's a whole alternate path. If you want action, and if you want to find a way to increase real conversations and the value add of those real conversations, and if you really want the teams to commit to delivering what it is you want them to deliver, that's included in the sprint goals and product backlog items and everything that's included in the sprint, here's what's got to happen. And many thanks to Bob Geist, Flow Certified Professional, Agile Coach, for distilling and drawing this picture. It was just brilliant. Instead of going straight from informed to expecting action, the executives need to understand that first, do I have understanding? Okay, are my definitions to the team clear? And if they've understood what I've communicated, do they agree with it? Okay, so that's distill agreement. Okay, another distillation that has to happen after that is getting the commitment, and that's when the whatever level that you're working at, whether it's a portfolio or program or project or whatever, where you get the commitment is, okay, we're going to commit the people, we're going to commit the budget, and we're actually going to go deliver this. Without that commitment, they can inform and expect action all day, but if where the rubber hits the road, and in most companies that are big, that have monolithic bureaucracies, if I don't have the resources, if I don't have the people, and if I don't have the budget, you can inform me all day, but I'm not going to be able to act. It's that simple. And so if you're dealing with a large organization, this is a beautiful application of distill, deliver, of definition, distill, and deliver. And then drive would be the iterative loop coming back and double checking with the executive. Here's what you informed us. Here was the actions. Are you still in alignment with what we just did? So this is a really cool application of the 4D model in a real life project situation where we were repeatedly running into this information act anti-pattern that was really messing up the team members, the program managers, the managers who were in charge of allocating resources and budget. And so once we started walking our stakeholders through this, they went, oh, yeah, there are additional steps. We were trying to help them break that bad habit. So in this video, we looked at the 4D model, and you'll notice that the 4D model has been woven throughout this entire training, and we're going to move into applications of flow and go deeper into that after this video. We showed you how to use the 4D model in reverse and where some of the explosions tend to occur. Typically when you're trying to distill, and shortly after you start to deliver, somebody says, oh, by the way. I love it. And so that's a cue. If you get an oh, by the way, that's a cue that, oh, well, we have a new definition then. If we have a new definition, then we're going to have to distill agreement again. And then we're going to have to look at, can we deliver that new definition? Had an executive that wanted to make one small change, and when he saw the price tag of 1.2 million euros, he said, no, I think we'll go ahead and do what we were doing. We showed how the 4D model also mirrors classic Greek rhetoric, and you have your definitions, and that's words. Words are definitions, and if you can't agree on what those words mean, or if people are using them differently, you don't have agreement. Okay, and then we went through the accountability commitment curve, all the steps that have to happen in order to break the inform act cycle. And many thanks to Bob Geist for his insight in coming up with that and applying the 4D model to that. That was most excellent. The application of this is, think about how you can immediately start to apply the 4D model starting today. You don't have to wait. Think about how to apply it to traditional classic waterfall, how to apply it to lean Kanban theories of constraints, that's TOC, change management, and even Agile and Scrum. Whatever you're using, if you apply flow to it and everything that we've shown you in flow, you're going to get exponential results. We've seen it over and over again. So think about what steps you can take right now as a leader to break the inform act cycle. And if your leaders are doing that to you, you need to call them out on it. Okay? In Finnish we have a word called sisu. That means guts or intestinal fortitude and not willing to give up, and that you'll carry through to the end no matter what. It's probably part of our Viking heritage. And this is really important in that you have to use the water torture of good news to help the executives understand that the steps that we're doing are producing the results that they want. And if they want to continue to get those results, that they themselves have to change behaviors and stop doing this inform act cycle, and just assume that everybody's going to agree with what they've said. And so this is really important. Think about how you can use these to your advantage, use these to influence up and manage outward with your teams and stakeholders.